Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and as the title of this video suggests, I wanted to talk about everything that I hadn't gotten around to talking about on my channel for the spring 2018 anime season. My favorites, things I didn't cover in episodic reviews or full series overview discussions. This is literally the everything else from spring 2018. And the reason I'm doing this is in lieu of having any sort of coverage for the summer 2018 season as of yet, as of the time of this recording. We're only about, the first week into it. And there's a lot of shows that I know I'm going to be watching already. I just haven't felt compelled to do first impressions videos or anything like that. I've kind of been staving everything off for an eventual summer 2018 watch list video, much as I have done for the past few seasons, because I find I just don't have a whole hell of a lot to say that'll go beyond just recapping the events of a given episode of, some of these new series. And I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste your time. Just sort of talking briefly about, all these given first episodes, just having one or two things to say and then being like, okay, see you later. So in lieu of having anything to really talk about thus far for the summer 2018 season, which, as I say, just began as of the time of this recording, I went and bracketed up a list from the spring 2018 anime season. And basically I have them, in segments. First I'm going to be talking about things I've already reviewed, just to recap them in case you haven't seen the specific videos I'm talking about for the series I'm going to be mentioning here. The first one on my list is Hinamatsuri, which was absolutely fantastic. It was, amazeballs, hilarious, had a lot of great heart and sentiment to it. And it was just a hilarious series. I dedicated an entire overview discussion video of it. You should check that out, if you haven't seen it already. And it's probably the highest recommend from the spring 2018 season of anime for me. Hinamatsuri, it was just grand and probably my favorite of the spring 2018 season. Next on my list, I have Megalobox, which I actually did cover in episodic review discussions. This was, again, another really classic sort of stylized anime series, a throwback to like the middle to late 90s anime era in the style of the animation, the character designs, all about this futuristic boxing. And as I say, if you want to go into my coverage of it, I did post episodic reviews. I was talking about every episode along the way. And you kind of just condense it down to maybe the finale, although you have to be warned of spoilers because, of course, I did talk about spoilers all throughout the course of the series. But it is, again, a top-tier recommend from the spring 2018 season. Other videos that I did was Tada Never Falls in Love, Tada-kun Never Falls in Love, which I absolutely fell in love with. I did an entire overview discussion of that. And then recently, as of the time of this recording, I think my last video, in fact, was talking about Darling in the Franxx, which I know isn't technically a spring 2018 anime series. It did end in spring 2018, though. And because I had dedicated an entire video overview discussion, of it, I figured it should make the list because it did round out the spring 2018 season. And then rounding out ones that I covered is Shokugeki no Soma Sen no Sera Totsuki Resha Hen, the second half of the third season of Shokugeki no Soma, a series I love. I've been on board with it from day one, and I've covered every single episode. Maybe not a couple of the special episodes or OVAs. I think I maybe covered one or two of them. But just the mainline season episodes, I've talked about every single one of them. And so that is pretty much the limit of everything that I've already done videos about and talked about at some point, whether episodically, as I did Shokugeki no Soma and Megalobox, or as overview discussions, Hinamatsuri, Tada Never Falls in Love, Darling in the Franxx. And so now we'll be getting on to everything that I watched and was enjoying but didn't end up doing a video about. And beginning on that particular list is Sword Art Online Alternative, Gun Gale Online, which I really thoroughly enjoyed, probably right up until the end. The final episode was kind of wonky to me, how it all culminated to deal with the characters of M and Pitohui, as far as their interactions with main character Len. They were just kind of balls to the wall insane, and that's kind of what their motivations were from the very beginning. and I don't know, that kind of fell flat for me. But overall, I enjoyed the series. It was just the ending that didn't do much for me. Another series that I watched and didn't cover was Golden Kamui, and I think the reason largely I didn't end up wanting to discuss it in its own video is because it kind of just, you know, cut off at the end of the season. There's going to be a whole second season coming, I think in October 2018, the fall season. And but this was a really intriguing, hilarious season. A lot of the sort of story aesthetics were very westernized in a way, telling the story of the quote-unquote immortal Sugimoto and the Ainu girl Aserpa and the sort of thief, and can get out, you know, pick any lock, get out of any bind, Shiraishi. And they are all sort of on this quest to put the pieces together of this grand puzzle that involves these tattoos on the backs of all of these criminals. And if you put them all together, it's supposed to divine a map that leads to a whole bunch of stolen gold. And so there's plenty of people on the good side, on the bad side, people in it for themselves that are all after this. And kind of like a chase, you know, movie or something like that. That's basically the outline of the series, and it can be hilarious. It can get intense. There's lots of going around, you know, the forest and killing animals for sustenance and stuff like that. And the character Aserpa, who is the Ainu girl, you know, there's a lot of sort of indigenous, sort of native aspects to it. Like you think of the Native Americans, the American Indians, kind of stuff like that, but it's aesthetics to the Asiatic regions, and it's interesting. Apart from that, another series that I did not discuss at all in videos, but I absolutely loved, was Piano no Mori TV, and apparently this is another one that's going to have a second season, but I think it's not coming until January 2019-ish, winter 2019. And that's kind of depressing. But this was a series, you know, full of grand classical music, and I loved every drip and minute of it, from Chopin to Mozart to Beethoven, following the sort of savantish piano player Kai and his friends, and, you know, the obstacles he has to go through learning to play the piano, because he kind of takes to it immediately, but it's, you know, all about his evolution and finding his own sound, rather than, as you find, he repeats the sounds of other piano players and other music that he hears. And so it's really an evolutionary, you know, tack that he's on to kind of perfect and find his own sound. And once he does, it is just amazeballs. It's just glorious. And it was a completely endearing series to me for all of its love of classical music and everything like that, and the characterization. Whereas he comes from the slum side of town, and his sort of best friend, pseudo rival, is this cat Amamiya, or Amamiya. And he's had everything handed to him. He's the silver spoons, you know. His family has very sort of, you know, uptight, been setting him at the piano and learning it. And it's a lot of the personal journey between them both as, you know, thorough contrasts, sort of bounding off each other. One is very adept and savantish, as I say. The other has been training and training and training, and yet the savant seems to be the better player and the more unique player. And so there's an adversarial thing going on between these two friends. They challenge each other, they push each other for greatness, and the series is that, exactly, greatness. Another series that I watched and did not discuss was Hisone to Masutan, which was a really intriguing series, all about this sort of special forces segment of the Air Force, Japanese Air Force or whatever, who has these specialized women who pilot dragons who disguise themselves as aircraft, in a nutshell. And there's a whole lot more to it than just that. The main character, Makasu, and the main dragon, Masutan, they are both adorable and just heartwarming. Their relationship, as at first he doesn't like her, and he kind of warms to her, she warms to him, and they figure each other out, because there's this whole process by which the dragon has to swallow the woman pilot, and she pilots it from inside the dragon. It's really weird. you know. But it's also very endearing. My favorite character in the series was the sort of motherly Hitomi. And then they rounded out sort of the main trio with Ririko, who had just a really weird way of clipped talking, and sometimes it would be annoying, and then other times it would kind of be cute, but in any case, it is what it is. Hisone to Masaton. Could not more highly recommend it. The weird thing about that series is it was only like 12 episodes, and it felt like it was 24. Not to say that the story lasted much longer than it should have, or they padded it out. It just, there was so much going on and so much depth and content. It just felt naturally to me like it was a longer series than it actually was. But it was pretty damn good. As far as things that I actually did touch upon this next one, because, and the reason it's included on this list is because it was one that I was really, really enjoying up until the last two episodes, kind of akin to Sword Art Online Alternative Gun Gale Online, Nil Admirari no Tenbin. I did a whole video talking about my biggest disappointments of the spring 2018 anime season, and this made the list for that. This one inspired that list, and I'll link that in the description below if you want to check that out. My biggest disappointments from spring 2018. But in any case, I included it on this list because it was one that I did thoroughly enjoy. It just, the ending floundered it, and it annoyed me. I enjoyed it all the way up until those last two episodes. Another series I watched and didn't discuss was Last Period, kind of a comedy series along the Konosuba lines, although for my part not nearly as funny. It was kind of a passive watch from beginning to end. There were aspects to it that I did find humorous. I don't feel like I wasted my time watching the series, but I'll be surprised if I really remember it in a month's time after it's ended. And then rounding out everything that I loved and was watching every week and enjoying that I didn't discuss is Hozuki no Reitetsu second season Sono Ni, the second half of the second season of Hozuki no Reitetsu. And while I did enjoy every episode of this, I had talked about, I think in an overview discussion video, the entirety of the first season. And this was a recommend from my friend Dana, who I think I mentioned in that video talking about that series. She also recommended to me the anime Rainbow, which was fantastic. And I did a whole overview discussion of that. But for Hozuki no Reitetsu, the sort of overhanging thing that I really loved about the second half of the second season was the episodes. There were two episodes that were standouts to me that revolved around the little sort of demon animal bunny character Mustard. And if you've watched the series, you'll know what I'm talking about. Anyway, 2 thumbs up from me, dedicating 2 whole episodes to her because she is kick-ass and hilarious. I talked about this over on my Facebook page. A lot of the stuff that I don't end up doing videos, whether it be the summer 2018 season as we're getting into it the first week, or all of this stuff. I tend to make posts over on my Facebook account about all of this stuff. And it's just a shame that not many of you guys who might be watching this video are friended to me over there and don't follow me over there, because you're missing out on a lot of stuff that I actually do talk about that I don't necessarily get around to making a video about. Because it's frankly easier sometimes to just post a little, paragraph long write-up rather than dedicating a whole video to something that'll last a minute and a half. I can only summarize a minute and a half's worth of talking about something, reacting to something. So that is the end of that portion of the list, stuff that I was watching, enjoying, and not discussing. And then we have the series from the previous seasons that ended in spring 2018. Now, I already kind of touched upon this framework with Darling in the Franxx. It was from the previous season. It ended in spring 2018. Loved it. Have a whole video discussing it. Series that I did not touch upon at all, other than the watch list videos I've done, were Katana Maidens, Toji no Miko, which I enjoyed for the most part. I think the first half of the season, which was its own sort of arc, was better than the second half, even though the second half was still somewhat enjoyable. It padded out the story a little too much to me in the second half of the season, which technically was the second arc, completely and totally. If it had just left off at where the half point was, where the first arc ended, I would have been thoroughly happy with it and probably come on and talked about it. But I was surprised to learn it was going to go on another, 12 episodes, have a whole second half of the season, have a whole second arc. And it was okay. It was nothing to write home about. Another series very much akin to that was Beatless, which was like a beat over the head, a beating over the head. Because what it amounted to was 20 episodes out of a 24 episode series. Those 4 other episodes that did air were recaps. And we're talking like a couple of them were just after 2 episodes, and we'd have another recap. It was insane. Too many recaps for this particular series, and I don't even remember as of the time of this recording when the rest of the episodes are going to air. Maybe it's October, the fall season, whatever it is, or winter season, I don't know. I don't understand why there were so many recaps, why they couldn't just finish the story in one fell swoop. It wasn't a gut punch of disappointment, but it just kind of got to the point where like I wasn't even really focused on what the hell was going on anymore. It was just like, okay, let's see how much further along we actually get with the plot and see if it goes anywhere. And it's arguable whether or not it did. You will not be sorry for having not tuned into Beatless. Let me put it that way. And then, to round out this video, I'm going to be talking about all of the series that are still holdovers from the spring 2018 season, things that are still ongoing, or that just haven't finished, or that I haven't seen the completions of as yet. And the first one I'm going to be talking about is Waka Okami wa Shoga Kusei, which I believe loosely translates to The Young Innkeeper as a Grade Schooler. This was a series I had recommended to me a while ago, and it's not been coming out every week at the same time. I don't think it's a fully licensed series, and so getting the subs attached to it and everything seems to be a rigmarole, a process. And so I'm only, a handful of episodes into it. I don't even know if it's finished as yet. But I have been enjoying it. It's about this young girl, as you can tell by the title, whose grandmother owns an onsen, and she becomes the innkeeper in training. I think her parents are deceased or something like that. And I love the ED to this particular series. It is ethereal and just has so much emotion to it, and the melody of it, I love it. I listen to it every time I watch an episode. And it's also kind of interesting because it turns out there's this little boy ghost in the onsen who was familiar with her grandmother, the main girl's grandmother, when her grandmother was a child, and he got killed in an accident. He fell off like the roof, climbing up there, acting like a monkey on a jungle gym. And so the main girl, Oriko, she can see him and communicate with him. The grandmother can't. And there's also other ghosts that come in and out of play, and it's really intriguing. Like, I didn't expect there to be ghosts. At one point you have this guy, this sort of reporter come in, who's doing like a review of the onsen, and I said, yeah, I should have figured there were going to be ghosts, because this is Dan Aykroyd coming in from the Ghostbusters. That's what the guy, the character design looked like. So that was an enjoyable series, what I've gotten to see of it. I'm hoping that I'll be able to catch up with more episodes at some point when they get to the timely subbing and putting it out. Another series very similar to that is Jiken Hin Kazoku, or Creature Family Days. And this is another one I've only seen like maybe 3 or 4 episodes of. I don't know whether it's because of a licensing issue or whatever. I just haven't seen all of the episodes that are supposed to have come out on time. It never came out on the same day, and I'm just waiting to see more. I've been enjoying it, but much like the Young Innkeeper as a Grade Schooler, I don't know when they're coming out, and it's kind of annoying. I have been watching, and I just watched the latest episode, whatever it was, yesterday, I think it was, of Kakaryo no Yarumishi, which is all about this young girl, Aoi, who is taken into the hidden realm, air quotes, the realm of the Ayakashi, the spirit realm, and by the Ogre King or Ogre Prince or whatever he is. And it's been a charming series. It hasn't been the best. As far as I'm concerned, it's a little wonky in its storytelling and pacing sometimes, but it turns out her grandfather you know, had accrued like a bar bill or something like that, and he made a deal signing off his granddaughter after his passing to make amends for the money he owed. And so the ogre king or prince or whatever he is seems to consider himself betrothed to her, and she decides to honor her grandfather's debts, not by actually agreeing to marry the king or the prince or whatever, but opening like a small little restaurant. And she makes human food for the Ayakashi and all this kind of stuff. And there's a really intriguing aspect to her past where after her parents subsequently, I think her father died or whatever, and her mother left her on her own, abandoned her. She was approached by an Ayakashi wearing a specific mask, and this Ayakashi had fed her and made sure she survived and you know, took care of her. And so there is this overhanging question: could that Ayakashi have been the ogre prince or king or whatever he is, or this sort of wolf dude Genji with gray hair and like the cat ears on both sides? And you know, you're wondering sort of the underwriting thing as all this other misadventure is going on from episode to episode with, you know, rival factions. She's working outside of an onsen in the hidden realm, the spirit realm. And there's a whole rival faction, and there's fights ensuing between them, and attempted assassinations and such like that, while all of this is, you know, taking place in a mystical, magical, hidden realm sort of environment. And but you're constantly wondering, as all of this other stuff is going on, who is the Ayakashi that saved her life? And is it one of these main characters who now is part of her life? And will she figure that out? Will it be who she assumes it to be? And it's kind of endearing, and it's kind of enjoyable. One of the standouts, one of the absolute standouts, something I am so stoked to watch every week, that is currently still ongoing, began in spring 2018, is Steins Gate Zero. I talked about the entirety of Steins Gate, the first season. I don't remember if I talked in that video about the special episodes that followed on and the follow-up movie. I did watch them all. And I know I have at least one video talking about the entirety of the first season. I can't recall if I talked about those other subsequent releases. But I have been dialed into Steins Gate Zero from the off, and it has just been amazeballs. You know, I can't say enough positive superlatives about it. Apart from that, still ongoing, began in spring 2018, is Persona 5, the animation. Now, I have heard some reaction to this, people who are more familiar with the Persona games and such like that this anime is a waste of time, it's not enjoyable, you don't get as much of the characterization, the depth of character, the depth of the experience, because inherently, you know, I argue inherently that's going to be the case, because this is an anime. It's not a game that you devote so much of your personal time and choices and choice making and things like that. You don't experience hands-on. So it's going to be a wholly different beast. For me, without any of that familiarity with the games or anything like that, the source material, I have been thoroughly engaged. I like how, you know, some of the episodes do go a little bit too speedily. They do wrap up the problem of the episode a little bit too quickly. It's a little bit too fastly paced on occasion, but for the most part, I love the animation. I love the character designs, the style of the characters. It's all about a cast of characters who are able to break through into this persona world where people who are like ill of heart and downright, you know, evil and out for themselves and things like that. They've created these personas that are like, you know, supernatural in a sense. And so as you accumulate all of the main cast of characters, they awaken in themselves the bridging of the gap between the normal realm and the persona realm, and they awaken their own personas, and they kind of become a pseudo, you know, like superhero team, a team for justice. And so when they have the interactions with these evil characters, it's all about their changing their hearts and making them come clean with their transgressions and admit to them and you know, stuff like that. And for me, I really enjoy it. I love it to pieces. It's one of my favorites from the spring 2018 season. And as I say, as of the time of this recording, it's still ongoing. And then rounding us all out is the series Full Metal Panic: Invisible Victory. I have watched every single iteration of Full Metal Panic, the Fumofu, you know, the first couple of seasons, everything like that, But it was so long ago that when this series came about, I knew I'd be watching it, but I had absolutely no familiarity with anything that was going on anymore. I had forgotten completely everything. And the one thing I will say going for this particular season, as of the time of this recording, there's 2 episodes left, to my understanding. And for some reason, there was a hiatus to get around to, airing them. I believe they will be airing sometime in the next couple of weeks as of the time of this recording. It's just the last 2 episodes they've staved off for whatever reason. But there were a couple of episodes dealing with these characters, this sort of red-haired, orange-haired girl, Nami, and then this blonde guy whose name I forget. They are introduced in this season for a couple of episodes, and the entirety of the series almost takes on its own persona from everything else Full Metal Panic related that came previously. It very much is akin to me to the series Black Lagoon, all of a sudden, just with giant mechas and stuff like that. And I have to say, I was really gut-punched, sucker-punched by the Nami character's fate. We only got to know her a couple of episodes, and it was a thorough tearjerker what happened to her. And I'll leave it there in case you haven't seen it. But if you have, you'll likely know what I'm talking about. Maybe you didn't get as, impactful an impact as I did. But, those are everything. That's everything. That's all of my favorites, and everything else I didn't end up covering for spring 2018, the anime season, and that I just wanted to share with you guys. As I say, this was largely in part due to the fact that I just haven't felt up to doing any first impressions videos of any of the stuff that I'm watching in the spring 2018 season thus far. I'm kind of just saving it all for a spring 2018 watch list when I'm locked into everything I know I'm going to be watching without a doubt, and give a little brief summary of what I like about them and such like that. But in lieu of having anything that really inspired me to talk about things episodically or first impressions wise, because there are things that I could have very well done that, but I just didn't feel like I had enough to say to warrant an entire video about. And here we are going on almost a half an hour, still talking about holdovers that I didn't get around to talking about from spring 2018. But I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below if you watched any of this stuff from spring 2018, what you thought of it, love it or hate it, anything goes. And just chime in with whatever was interesting to you, whether it's something I mentioned or not. But so yeah, otherwise that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Again, just wanted to talk about anime, even though it's holdovers from spring 2018 that I didn't get around to talking about. Because I love anime, I love talking about it, even though, as I say, we're a week into the summer 2018 season, and I still haven't really felt like talking about it yet. But that watch list will be coming, barring any, no obstacles, put it that way, should come up and everything like that. And stay tuned for that. And until then, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.